Just when you thought all of the hardware announcements were done for the year, at least I kind of did or hoped, because it's been non-stop since May now, there's still more. So Fractal has a new Define C series case. We'll be talking about that briefly in this hardware news recap. There's a rumored AMD RX 470D. Again, rumored, but we'll talk about what we have on that so far. And then also some potential alleged leaks on a 1050 Ti mobile, as in 1050 Ti notebook GPU. Mobile, probably not the best word anymore because it's no longer the M suffix branding. Before getting to that, this coverage is brought to you by AMD's Athlon X4 880K CPU, now available with the company's Quiet Cooler for under $100 on Newegg. Pair that with an FM2 Plus board for a budget gaming solution. Link in the description below for more information. So first up for this week, there are more rumors about an RX 470D. It's also been called a 465. It's been called a 470 SE, but we're going to go with the name 470D for now. So the update versus previous rumors that we discussed on TGW, the update is basically that the card has now been photographed, allegedly. Anyway, so this is a card that would be positioned around where the 1050 Ti currently rests, and the rumored 470D was leaked by Chinese website PC Online, who claimed to have photos of Sapphire's 470D Nitro card next to the existing 470 non-D Nitro. The 470D, if these rumors are to be believed, would run a shader count of 1792 versus the RX 470's 2048, or a reduction of about 13% in shader core count. The card is also rumored to operate at 1266 MHz boost, keeping a 4GB frame buffer on a 256-bit interface. Power draw will be the biggest differentiator between the 1050 Ti and RX 470D, if these rumors are to be believed anyway, but the RX 470D should theoretically outpace the 1050 Ti based on these specs. This would put AMD back into competition at the low end, where its RX 460 recently became embattled with the 1050 and 1050 Ti. The next news item is more alleged leaks. These come from Laptop Media, who say they're testing a 1050 Ti notebook device. And we know that there is a 1050 Ti that will eventually end up in notebooks. It just makes sense. It's a really good fit in terms of the stack, because the 1060, it offers good performance, but it's almost too good for 1080p gaming on a notebook. If you could instead sacrifice some of that performance ability and go instead for better power draw, which a 1050 Ti would allow, it makes a lot of sense for 1080p gaming on notebooks, where you're more concerned potentially about the battery life and things like that than almost anything else. And that is especially the case when you're talking about non-gaming scenarios, which of course matters with a notebook. In its post, Laptop Media indicates that the GP107 notebook GPU will operate with a boosted clock of 1624 MHz and with 768 CUDA cores, leveraging a 112GB per second memory bandwidth for its 4GB of memory. The specs are largely the same as what we've seen with the desktop units, and that's to be expected for this generation. This year, desktop components aren't being nerfed quite as hard as in the past for use in laptops, and that again is heralded by the lack of the M branding on these mobile GPUs. And Laptop Media alleges a 10% performance increase with the 1050 Ti over the 970M. Of course, we hope to independently benchmark the 1050 Ti notebooks once they're made available to us. I don't have it yet, but we've already looked at the 1060, 1070, and 1080 notebooks, at least with varying levels of depth, but especially the 1060. And hopefully the 1050 Ti will bring some power consumption savings, because that's always the point of concern with any notebook. But the next news item is not a leak or a rumor or any allegations. It is Fractal's new Define C series cases. So the Define C cases were announced just recently in the past week or so. There are a couple of different versions of them, I think 4. There's the Fractal Define C, the Define C with a window, same thing, just with a window, and you lose some of the padding for noise purposes. And then there are the smaller versions, the Mini C and the Mini C with a window, which is basically for micro ATX, but is otherwise more or less the same case. You obviously lose a few features for height, but it is smaller. The Define C uses Fractal's minimalistic approach to design from what we've seen so far. That includes side panels that offer minimal breathing ventilation to reduce noise escaping from the case, so a traditional trade-off where it's a bit more discreet, but it's also going to be worse at cooling. The Define C includes one 120mm fan in the front, one 120mm fan in the rear of the case for exhaust, and options for up to 2 more 120s in the front, 2 120 140s in the top, and a bottom one 20mm fan. Liquid cooling support maxes out at a 360mm radiator, though it is pushing it a bit depending on what the specific radiator sizing is. The case can also support two 80mm radiators. The final bit of news is more of a PSA. These are driver updates. So NVIDIA and AMD both this week pushed driver updates for their existing packages, both of which are hotfixes. The AMD hotfix first. It's 16.11 is the new driver package, but they're already on 16.11.2. And that hotfix includes shader cache optimization. So the shader cache now has more storage, and that should theoretically improve performance in more extreme scenarios. And that driver contains the same updates that 16.11 brought, including Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1. That was already pushed with 16.10. So that's all in there. If you have an AMD device, you're playing any of those games, or you could benefit from shader cache changes, then grab 16.11.2. That should be available on their site now. The next change, NVIDIA's hotfix 375.76 driver resolves issues with high refresh monitor flickering. So if you have a high refresh rate display that has had some flickering, black flickering lately when you're playing games or even not, that is in theory resolved with this driver update, and you should just download it and install it, because other than that, it's all basically the same updates for Battlefield, Call of Duty, Abduction, all those games that you would expect it to have. If you're not having issues and you're on some 3.7 dot whatever driver series that's come out recently, you're probably fine. If it's not broke, I guess don't fix it is the saying. So if your performance is not having issues, if your card is not broken, then probably leave it alone. But if you could benefit from the refresh fixes, then grab it. There's also some GIF artifacting fixes. So if you have animated GIFs and those are artifacting oddly, that actually might be caused by video drivers, which is not something that we normally think of when we see that. So that's all for this video. Patreon link in the post for the video. Help us out directly. Links in the description below for more information. Started to do that one. Subscribe for more. I'll see you all next time.